do you think with when it comes I just really want to know straight off the bat because doing the research I've seen that you've done 250 voices and I'm like, dude, where do they come from? Where does these voices come from? Is it do they come natural or do you have to prepare or what is your secret, Phil?
Well, I mean, voice acting is a more collaborative form of acting than, say, film acting. Film acting is always, this is how I would be if I were this character, this lawyer, this soldier,
Mm,
whatever. But with um, animation and voice acting, the voice is a third of the character, in addition to the concept and the art. So, really, usually the concept and the vision are formed before we come into audition. So, you look at that and you listen to the ideas, the vibe that the creators have, and then you think, this is what I think someone like that would sound like, or something like
mm,
that. It's not always people. And so you worked, and that's when you audition, and your idea of what those things come together and sound like doesn't match what's in the creator's ear,
mm.
you don't get hired. But when you do, they go, oh, yes, that's exactly what I thought it would sound like. Or sometimes they may say, ooh, that's almost there. Wait, Phil, can you give him a little more, strength? And then you make an adjustment, and they like that
Mm.
because, oh, wow, this actor can take direction. We're going to be able to make this good.
Fantastic. And I'm going to name a few off the bat. Obviously, you got Family Guy, King of the Hill, Hey Arnold, Futurama, which I've had Billy West on the show. Fantastic, fantastic guy. Um, the Proud Family, Foster's Home. I mean, so many people, so many shows even, and you've worked with. Was there ever a time for you, which with any show that you found it very challenging in a sense of I know you say that with great direction you'll get the gist of the voice, but when it comes to a particular show, a particular character, has there ever been a challenge for you to go, oh, this one's a real challenge for me? Do you see what I'm getting at? If you know him.
Well, I mean, not really anything comes to head of like, oh, this was just a challenging job. Maybe because something that is that big a challenge for you
Mm,
is not a job that you get
mm.
hired for.
Love the answer.
You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, and it's, I don't know if it's because you would come out a little, you know, unstrengthened. Okay, well, maybe he sounds like this. They're not going to hire that.
No.
But trying to think what were challenge. I mean, I I think one of the most challenging voices might have been a character I did for a video game called Metal Gear Solid.
Mm,
I had been in just randomly auditioning for, I think, some uh, general or official or something, and then they said, "Oh, actually, Phil, there's another character that we need a voice for, but we've been having trouble finding, anything that works. You want to give it a try?" And it was this character named Vamp, who was one of the boss's villains, and they described him as, well, he's called Vamp and he kills, but he's not really necessarily a vampire. And they just gave me a lot of what he was not.
mm.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting. You said, okay, we don't want a specific Eastern European accent. It's like, okay, you're telling me all these things you don't want. Well, let me just come up with something. And I thought to myself, apart from what they had said, well, maybe if he was a vampire or thought he was a vampire, well, if you're a vampire, you don't need air. What's a voice that sounds like without breathing? And I started to sound like this with an not specific Eastern European voice. Five today, or rather six. And I saw the casting director go,
You got it.
creeped her out. And it was
Uh,
interesting because it was just rolling dice. That was lucky. They didn't
mm,
say, we need the creepiest sounding voice for this, you know, villain that's going to try to kill the player.
mm,
Because then you would have done something like this. But I went a different direction and they liked it.
mm. Especially with, I always find it fascinating when it comes to villains when they speak very quiet, monotone.
Mhm.
Because I think that always represents a very calculative, cunning villain. It's like they don't need to raise their voice to know that I'm a deadly assassin or I'm a deadly person that you do not want to mess with. I just find that so interesting. And it always works well, even though it's a cliche in some aspects, but it works so well. I always think anyway.
Well, it's
Um,
because we have higher quality
mm,
um, storytelling nowadays. In the old days, the good cowboy wore a white hat, and the bad cowboy wore a black hat and
mm,
acted bad. So it was always one or the other. But even before those old days, in the old days, in good storytelling, in Shakespeare,
mm,
the bad guys were not a different kind of being than the good. Every character was a person, and that's where we are now.
mm,
People, you know, even though, well, I guess some people relate to the villains in their shows, but we all want the characters to feel embodied, to
mm.
feel real, not just be like in the old cartoon days where, you know, I'm a mouse, I'm a cat, where
Yeah, yeah.
it's just one little element, not really a personality.
Did you which character did you feel that came naturally to you? Because obviously you did so many voices. Which one did you feel that, oh, this has come so natural to me?
Well, I mean, the good thing is with voice acting, it's not method acting. You don't have to embody it, take it with you after you finish your session. I'm gonna go talk like this for the rest of the day. Is that okay, honey? you know, yeah. But and for me, I've been fortunate enough to work with some great creators and storytellers who tell stories that help you feel connected.
Mm,
You know, I mean, I grew up reading comic books and never felt connected to the superheroes. But then when we were doing Justice League, I did feel connected to John Stewart, Green Lantern of Sector 2814, because he wasn't just, I am hero. They, said, oh, he's a man who was a U.S. Marine. Then the Green Lantern ring found him, chose him, and now he is using his fighting powers for heroism. And his, background was in Detroit. So that's a full character. And I figure, well, if I had that background and was that large and powerful, I would sound and feel like this.
mm,
And the series Static Shock, that was definitely one I felt like, okay, well, what did I sound like at 14? and I tried to do my childhood voice for a character for the first time. I
Hmm.
wasn't, you know, Hermes on Futurama was like, well, Phil, if you had grown up in Jamaica, what would you sound like? I didn't think that.
What about with Family Guy then? There was of course a lot of people would imitate Peter Griffin, a lot of people would imitate Joe Swanson, a lot of people, but you had forgive me, my brain just had a bit of a
Ollie Williams.
Ollie Williams, the weather guy, and we all we all remember it's raining sideways, and it's just we all love it. But how did you get involved, and what was the did you audition, or did Seth MacFarlane ask you to come on board? Tell us the story.
Well, actually, it's a very odd and, in my 30 plus year career, the only story like this in show business. Um, I had actually worked with Seth before Family Guy. He did a little short for Nickelodeon. And I think Butch Hartman also did one. We just did some little thing with zoo animals or something. I forget the name of it. And it was cute, it was fun, it was nice, whatever. But it wasn't a big show. It was just, yeah, you'll do a little voice, you guys do a little art. Good. All right, great to meet you. But then, a couple of years later, as I was working on a late night sketch show for Fox TV, Mad TV, one of the executives at the network came up to me and said, hey, Phil, would you do me a favor? I've got this young animation guy that I'm want to bring into the network. Would you come and record a voice for a presentation he's putting together to give them his concept for a new animated show? I was like, sure. I go in there, oh, Seth, hey, it's good to see you again. And the interesting part about that is also she made the same, ask to Alex Borstein.
Mm.
Because this was the executive on our late night sketch show, and she knew that we did claymation pieces and multiple characters. So I said, hey, guys, come do some voices for this little kid, this little kid. And that's how Alex and I both got connected to Family Guy. Well, she's gone on now for 30 years as his wife.
It's absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy. But um, did they say it's simple for Ollie to be straightforward, angry? This is the weather. Was it pretty
Well,
straightforward?
well, actually, in the presentation thing we did, I think I voiced just a judge in the scene in the first episode where Peter is on trial for, some financial fraud thing. And so I was just doing, various characters throughout the episodes. And then a couple of episodes in, they did a news bit, and Seth had me come in and do the weather guy. And it was one line per episode. So it was the shortest work day. Like, oh, hey, Seth. Hey, Phil. How you doing? Oh, good. It's raining. Okay, one more. Angrier. It's gonna rain. Perfect. Thanks. That was the work day.
That's the best work day ever for many people. The best. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Creative Space Podcast channel. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified for more content in the future. Thank you once again.